Hello and welcome to your program this morning. I am Dapo Aruwajoye. Our Nigerians are back to work today after a 2-day holiday to celebrate the Eid al-Kabir and the weekend break also. And also we need to commiserate with the families of the people who died in the Hajj stampede in Saudi Arabia over the weekend. Some of them prominent in Nigerian pilgrims. We pray that God grant them the fortitude to bear the loss and a quick recovery to the injured receiving medical attention. Okay, Nigeria is 55 this week, Thursday, 1st October, and any moment before then, we expect President Buhari to announce names of his cabinet members. The president had said that he will name his members, his ministers, by the end of September. Some names were published and mentioned by the media some time ago, but they remain speculative until the presidency confirms that. So this morning, we shall revisit the speculative list and discuss the kind of ministers that Nigerians expect this time around. And to do this, we may have two gentlemen, they are journalists. I have Jide Johnson, is the Deputy Provost at Nigerian Institute of Journalism. Thank you very much for being here, Jide.
It's a pleasure to be with you on Setup.
And also Niyi Akishiju is a news magazine publisher and is, of course is a journalist. Thank you very much, Niyi, for being part of the program.
Thank you so much.
JJ, let me start with you. And do you think this list will really come? Because we have 2 days to go before the end of the month. Are you certain, or can I use that word? Are you optimistic that this list will come out before the end of September?
We will take the word of the president for it, and the president has said that before September 30, the list will be out, and over the course of weeks since the administration came into power, there have been different, as we are approaching that deadline, different kind of lists started emerging and different kind of names. This has been screened, this has been dropped, and whatever. So I am of the strong opinion that at least it will be part of the independence gift to Nigeria by the president concerning the list of his ministerial nominee. We have to be screened in the first instance by the Senate before the swearing in. So I'm sure, I'm positive, and I'm hopeful.
Okay, because you made mention of the fact that there should be screening by the Senate, and a whole lot has to go on. We need to do the announcing. So when do you think before the end of the month, or maybe like early October? Because when the Senate has to sit to even look into this, when do you think we shall see the list, or we shall see the ministers?
Well, I think we'll start moving away from the speculative realm once the list gets to the Senate. It becomes a public property. But I can say that the way President Buhari operates, nobody can authoritatively speculate as with her. It's any list in the public place, it's speculative list. And I think it will be inappropriate, to try to form opinion, whatsoever on the list. But I think essential to I don't want to put it, making public the list is the fact behind perhaps the delayed, or the anxiety the list had generated in the public place. For me, I think the president may have overreached himself, may have decided to do things differently, from tradition and convention. I think the president, as it were, is properly equipped with the details and the basics of each department, ministry and agencies of government, as it were, because over the last 3-4 months, he has been engaging with the bureaucrats, the heads of the bureaucracy in each of the MDAs. To that extent, that is appropriate to driving an executive kind of government, So it's not the minister that would brief him now. He had been properly briefed. So from that perspective, it will mean that he will be a more enlightened, a more knowledgeable president presiding over affairs.
Okay.
Because when ministers are appointed now, it gives them briefs, it gives them targets, because they are actually supposed to be his agents. They can't be more master than he is, as as executive president, is the chief executive officer. And when you are chief executive officer, what you do, when you employ people, because ministers are his employees, when you employ people, you create, you form, or you generate a brief. This is how I want you to run this ministry. This is the kind of target I want you to drive at. And this is your timeline for delivery of this essence, you know. Okay. So to that extent, I think we should expect a more creative, a more proactive government, you know, okay, given this approach.
Okay, a more proactive government. And he said, he made mention of something. He said that the president has been talking to I rather say the technocrats, the people that knows what is happening there. And the president also even echoed that fact at France. I think he paid a visit to France of recent when he was talking to the AFP. He said that the people that does the work are the permanent secretaries and not the ministers are like the noise makers. Do you think, what do you think?
I don't share that opinion. I don't belong to that school of thought. I belong to the school of thought that is of the opinion that this list ought to have come earlier than now.
This is the longest in history.
Earlier than now. Earlier than now, I belong to that school of thought. And I believe that the drivers of any governmental policies are the civil servants, so they are critical. So the permanent secretary briefing the president over time is important. However, there is also the administrative side of it, the political side of it, which is the head of the ministries that are headed by ministers, empowered by the Constitution to play that role. If the framers of the constitutions knows the importance of what the ministers will do, that's why there's the need for a cabinet. The presidency is functioning without a cabinet. Are you getting my point?
Yes.
And to me, like I said, I do not share that opinion. I think we've delayed too much, and the earlier we do it, the better. Because, look, let's take one department, for example. Because I've listened to different arguments by different people, you know, basically because the president promised us change, which every one of us is fully looking forward to and want to do things differently. As a result of that, we are patient with the president, with whichever approach with which he wants to do it. But I'll give you an example. The president alone, a brief from one department alone, a brief from one ministry or from one department, the capacity of one individual to put all of that in his head is limited, absolutely limited. That's it.
So the same thing goes for the minister also.
No, but you have different ministers to take different types of department for you. It's like, I give you an example. I use the human body as an illustration. The presidency is the head. The president is the head. Can the head do the function of the hand?
No.
Can the head do the function of the leg? That's the basic thing. And the earlier we get done with this, the better. You see all this narrative that we have seen over time, that people will say, you know, it's being briefed by the minister, it's being briefed by this. I think we need to move on with the administration, because the Constitution makes a provision for that.
Provision, when you talk about that provision, it's like some people will say, okay, this is like job for the boys, like a blessing to each state. Let us just give them something. That's what people will argue. The ministers, do they really do the job?
Like, I'll give you an example, and I've said this over time. Let's take the visit of the president outside of Nigeria without the Minister of Foreign Affairs. Let's take the U.S. visit. As far as I'm concerned, you are John Kerry. I'm a permanent secretary from Nigerian hand. You are the Secretary of State of America, invariably the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and you are talking to me, a permanent secretary. There are some different kind of levels of talk.
So it doesn't tell you that.
Yeah, levels of talk that takes place at that level, ministerial level, because that's the administrative aspect, not the technical aspect. That takes place across board in diplomacy, in international relations. All of these we have shortfall, but you know why we're still tolerant is because we believe that the president is trying to do the right thing. But so, taking too long to do the right thing may amount to not doing anything.
But it's worth the wait.
It's worth the wait. But I think this September 30 deadline should be met.
Should be the deadline.
Should be met.
And what do you think too? Because do you think the ministers really, they have a key responsibility. When we talk about the permanent secretaries being the ones that have been there for years, more than 20 years some, and do you think the ministers really have, according to the president, they are noisemakers?
Oh, well, I think that was just an off-the-cuff comment, by the president. But essentially, we need to be more serious about government and governance. We've had government that always had full complements of ministers, over time, and some people even go to the next level to say we don't have an economic team and all that, and that it's only when you have the ministers that you have that. The essential thing for me is good governance. How it is provided is the function of the president, and it is also important we understand the essence of the president in the Nigeria's constitution. The president is the chief executive officer. He takes decision by himself. So whoever, no matter how qualified you are still subject to the background, to the psychology, to the environment of the president. And of course, since he takes decision, he is also accountable for those decisions.
So
if he fails,
you are saying the ministers don't really give advice?
No, they can't give advice, but it's the president that aggregates. I am not saying that a minister is not essential, it's not important. But you see, there's also a quandary for us here. Most people that demand for ministers, as it were presently, are only insisting, orchestrating that because of political reasons. We have also over time,
because of the gains, right?
Observed that
gains.
People get involved in politics, wants to gain something, and the way they are settled is ministerial appointment, commissionership, and all that. It is not because of where they are coming from. It is not about their capacity. If you are talking about capacity, the extent of individuals in politics and their qualification don't really run at par with people that should be up there. Because the truth of the matter is that in Nigeria, most people with professional backgrounds are not involved in politics. Now, the president may not have no choice than to fall back first on the bureaucrats that have grown through the job and grown through the rank, over time. They have been exposed to, see, the truth of the matter is that the civil servants in Nigeria are the best experienced, most exposed in terms of managing projects in Nigeria.
Yes.
Because Nigeria, and I'm trying to look at it even from our budget. It's the average civil servant at whatever minister that manages the biggest budget, compared to anybody, any practitioner in the corporate world. You have the Ministry of Finance managing 4-point-something trillion naira every year. There is no single corporate body that manages that. Now, what that tells you is that the PAMSEC and perhaps directors in those ministries are capable, have capacity because of their exposure. You want to look at what the Ministry of Work, the kind of projects the Ministry of Works have been implementing, executing all these years. You want to compare the permanent secretary, for instance, and I'm not making a position for the post, for the fact that, it was the permanent secretaries that should be running this. What ministers do for government is to carry the ideological orientation, of this government, back to the civil servants. Because civil servants are supposed to be ideologically neutral, and because government changes, ideology will change. So when you appoint a minister, the minister is believed to have been properly imbued with the ideological orientation of this new government. So it takes that back to the ministry and overlay the ideology on whatever template the bureaucrats are doing.
I get what you mean.
So you get what I'm trying to say?
Yes, I do.
So for me, it is also important, for God's sake, that we give the president enough time to understand the rudiments of government, as it were.
But this is enough time.
Yeah, of course. He says he's committed to that. And, given the kind of president we have, we know he's committed to it. And we know by this week,
we'll get to it. There are two things I want to respond to. One, the president is not an emperor. The Constitution makes a provision for the executive to be the president and his ministers, that constitute the cabinet. That is required. It's a constitutional provision that they take decision. In our constitution, you know that 2/3 of the minister, 2/3 of them could pass a vote, a resolution on to say that the president is not capable to govern if they deem so fit, and they will write. So it's provided for in our, I don't know this section now. That's what, in terms of, and sometimes over the years in Nigeria, we've had this narrative that, you know what, people in politics are not technocrat. We can begin to take Lagos State, for example, people that are playing politics in Lagos State, or we go across board all over the nation. What makes somebody to be a professional? You have a profession, you have a qualification, a certification, and a practice. And a practice to do some certain.
But what you said just now, we hardly find them in politics. We hardly find professionals in politics.
What is a professional, and who is a professional?
Like some people just go into politics, they are politicians.
They are politicians.
Yes,
without having anything to do.
But it's not as if it's a new thing now. You said
it's a narrative that has gone over time. It's a narrative that has gone over time. The former governor of Lagos State, before he became the governor, was what? A lawyer. But the present governor, the present governor of Lagos State was what? The governor of Osun State, the governor of Oyo State. They are not what? It's a narrative that has eaten deep into our discourse, and we are believing it to be the truth. That they are no, you need technocrats. I give you the example the other time I was on set. Okay, civil servant, they are the drivers, because once you don't get the civil service right, actually government policy can't see the light of the day.
Yes.
But I tell you, are they the civil servants we have at the national level? Are they not the one that have been there in the last 16 years? Are they not the one? Are they not the same set of people? In what way have they driven the nation forward? You know, so when we begin to bandy this narrative, I don't seem to agree with it. Oh, that, you know, they are technocrats. What is even the word technocrat? Where did it come from? That's the issue. It's a narrative that has eaten deep into our discourse, and we are believing it.
But the last time before we went talking on this set, outside the camera, we were you made mention of the fact that it is necessary, it is the best practice for people, when you send this list to the Senate, right? You should mention the ministry.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope that the president will do that. That by the time the list is being sent, that we have, oh, this person, we have nominated so person for Minister of Information, for Minister of Economy, for Minister of this, for Minister of that.
Because the Minister of Economy knows much about the economy. That's the way it should be.
Exactly. So that we'll be able to trace from his CV whether he has the capacity. Coming to what Nee said, whether he has the capacity to function in that office.
Like imagine Adesina, the Minister of Agric. He's still living the expectation. He's still the African Bank, or is it the Agric Bank? Yes, bank. He's still living the expectation. He's still. It's not as if you bring somebody because, okay, let us do you a favor. You were good during the electionary period. Okay, let us just bless you, Minister of Mines and Steel. When you don't even know what is physics.
Good. Now we'll go back to our constitution. The constitution says in that cabinet, ministers, at least one, must come from each state. The constitution didn't give us the requirements and the qualification of the ministers. Now what that tells you, you can also generate those names through two things. I mean, two ways. Either you generate it from operators, politicians, power players within a state, and forward it to the president. Or the president say, let me start searching, you know. Most likely, if you start searching, it won't meet the aspiration of politicians at the grassroots level, you know. So, politicking is different to government. And like I said, you was talking about the civil servants were in charge in the last 16 years. What have they done? And I said, my position is they won't do whatever. They can't go beyond the reigning government, because it is the ideological orientation of the reigning government that the civil servant will pursue.
So they cannot outdo the person that's
possible.
paying them.
So if the reigning government is a corrupt government, they will help the reigning government to be very corrupt. If you are an efficient government, civil servants would help because they are psychologically neutral. No, that's the essence of civil service. You cannot see anything in black or white. It is what is from the position of view of the reigning government that the civil servants see things, you know. So and that is where we have been missing it mostly. When you have a government in place, it is essential that whoever will become the administrative head, or rather the political head of the ministries and of the MDAs, should have proper ideological orientation of the party, as it were. So when they are appointed, you go to the ministries with your ideological orientation. Now, it is simple. You can see from the manifesto and the promises of the current government, you know, that we are likely to have a near social welfare oriented government. Now, when you have such, it must start speaking to all policies in ministries, departments, and agencies. So if you are talking power now, the way a social welfare government will look at it will be different from the way a Republican or a capitalist-oriented government will look at it. If you go into education, it's the same thing. So there will be different approaches. So it is the minister, because for the civil servants, they have templates of moving proposals, letters, and all that. It is you, the minister, that will now say, okay, this proposal must have this angle, because our government is a social welfare-oriented government. And this is a proactive one, for that matter. And this is the kind of angle we need to give to the people, you know. So, talking generally now, I don't have anything against politicians. I am a politician. I am a professional, you know. But we still need so many things in between being a politician and being a government functionary.
There should be a balance, right?
A balance.
And we've seen some names that have been bandied around as some will say, okay, some have been visiting the DSS. That's why they concluded, okay, this man might be the next minister, one of the ministers. But do you think, Rabana, because I think on this stage with Yori once, you've argued that people now, it's like, okay, I just call you to come and be a minister is not like a blessing like it used to be, because the way Ni mentioned that, the way people, people are mentioning, if you want to be a minister now, you must have a cross on your neck. You must be an hard-working person, and it does not necessarily mean you are there to make money. You are there to work this time around. What do you think?
You know, first and foremost, before you become a minister, you have to be sponsored by a party. It's there in our constitution. The constitution is the guiding principle behind all of our action. You see, and I think that when we make that the fulcrum of our decision making, it's better for us. Everything we do, regardless of the feel-good factor we have concerning this administration, must also be guided by what is right and what is wrong. Well, the names, like we said, are mere speculations, but some are, I think about 3 weeks ago or thereabout, you know, we saw some names and everybody was actually glad that, you know what, these are people that look like it. As far as every one of us is concerned, we want the president to succeed, because when you have a successful nation, that you and I will succeed. Without a successful nation, you and I cannot succeed. So everybody's looking forward to those that will constitute the cabinet, because they are the people that will carry out the agenda of the president.
Is it because of the pedigree?
They are the ones that will carry out this agenda, because the president can't be always. You are here on set. We have camera. You can't do everything. Nobody can do everything. He needs people like him that will help out in running its administration, that think the same way he thinks, that see from the same perspective with which he see. So basically, that must have informed the selection process, being rigorous. Are you getting my point?
Yes.
Because
you need to scrutinize.
Being rigorous. Are you getting my point? But rigor has nothing to do with time. It talks about the process. You could be rigorous in 1 week, and you'll be complacent in 6 weeks. And that's what we are saying. That we need to do what we need to do. We need to do it fast now, because time waits for nobody. It's teach in time
Let me quickly put the same question to you. Is it because of that, really? And it's not easy having these people around because it's time to work now. And you need to look for the right person to put in that right position. And the names you've seen in the list, are you satisfied? Do you think some people will make it? Or are you still expectant?
You may have to excuse me because I seriously think that until that list gets to the Senate, it still remains in the realm of speculation. And with this government, you cannot say.
Predict.
You know, you cannot say. But like he said, I think I just need to make a correction. I am not too sure the Constitution says ministers must be sponsored, you know, on the platform of political party. I'm not too sure. But what I know is that we should look at it away from tradition and take into consideration the thinking of the president. If this process had been slow at all, at the moment, you have in more than 3,000 MDAs, officers of government appointed by the last government. You get it? And they are still there. Now, it tells you something about the president, you know. It tells you something about stability. You know, it tells you something about security. Because if the president had a choice of coming into office and sacking everybody in our normal tradition, you know, sacking everybody. In national orientation today, you have a person, you know, appointed by the last government. In NAN, the same thing, and you can start counting all parastatals. So what I'm trying to say essentially is, we need to give a president, a CEO, the opportunity to first get apprised properly with happenings in the MDAs. It is not proper to say, okay, you are the chief executive officer, and because the next thing is you have to form a cabinet. You cannot form a cabinet outside the fact of your knowledge and experiences within the MDAs. It is you. You are the Constitution says the government is the head. I mean, the president is the head of government. Even if I was appointed the head of TVC today, I can't possibly appoint my directors in 2 or 3 weeks.
At that point, I beg your pardon because I need to go on a very short break. While we'll come back, we'll definitely continue where we stop. Just stay with us, please.